step. Take my advice and call the Life Back Tax Experts and let them smash your tax debt to smithereens. They'll stop the IRS from garnishing your wages. They'll stop them IRS from touching your bank account. They'll get the liens removed from your property, and they won't even need a sledgehammer. Get the tax stress out of your life today. They'll negotiate your tax debt to what? A fraction of what you owe. Heck yeah, this makes sense. With the highest A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, they'll set a flat fee for their services, and then what? Let you make payments. Get your life back when? Today. Call 855-220-7500. That's 855-220-7500. 855-220-7500. Get your tax relief at lifebacktaxrelief.com.
It's a fact of life. Most of us may experience pain, swelling, and discomfort associated with hemorrhoids, but you don't have to let it disrupt your life. Recticare Complete Hemorrhoid Care System is both Recticare Advanced Cream and wipes in one box. It provides rapid, effective relief from pain and swelling using the highest strengths of lidocaine and phenylephrine HCl available without a prescription. Find Recticare Complete over the counter in the blue and white box at CVS Pharmacy, Walgreens, and Rite Aid.
A new budget battle is brewing. Democrats threatening to shut down the government if there's money in a must-pass spending bill next month for the president's border wall. Was it the Democrats who slammed Republicans over a shutdown? Listen to this.
They made the decision to shut down the government because they want to make it harder, for example, for a woman to get a cancer screening.
They don't believe in government. They're anti-government ideologues who are, it's the Tea Party shutdown of government.
A shutdown will have a very real economic impact on real people right away.
Holding Americans, their livelihoods, their economy, and yes, their security at stake.
We actually work for the American people. They sent us here to get things done, not to play these silly games.
To former FEMA director Michael Brown on what he makes of all of this. First of all, Michael, I have to ask you about the timing. We're snowed in for much of the Northeast. Democrats are talking about shutting down the government. I think that's bad timing. What say you?
Not only the bad timing, but having lived in Washington, D.C., you know that there's even a forecasting, so they'll shut the government down. So I find it absolutely hypocritical that they would talk about this today when most of Washington is shut down because of a forecast of snow. I find it absolutely silly.
Let me get this straight. They are threatening to shut down the government because funding for the wall on the southern border is included in a particular bill. Is that what this is all about?
No, I think that's what they want to focus on because the wall is a symbol of President Trump's presidency. But what is really going on is the American public has been led to believe that a government shutdown means they won't get a Social Security check, they won't get basic services, and a government shutdown doesn't mean any of that. It means that non-essential personnel won't show up, but the military will continue to do its job, the Department of Homeland Security will continue to do its job, FEMA will continue to do its job. All of these government services that what we call in the vernacular essential government services will continue regardless of whether they call it a government shutdown or not.
In the past, whenever the government was shut down for whatever length of time, it was the Republicans who got the blame. This time around, if the government is shut down again, will it be the Republicans again who get the blame?
Well, with all due respect
crisis Obamacare, meeting with congressional leaders, working his phone, holding listening sessions, lunching with old rivals. It's in his blood, sales. Which is good. Trump has something to sell that is way more complex than a lie about keeping your doctor. What a contrast. Trump is feisty but flexible. Obama, cool but rigid. But he had no reason to bend. The media only bought into his shtick. His giddy fan base ate him every white-coated lie. Obamacare was a lemon, but the media were his lemon heads. So in a surprising turnabout, it's Trump who's listening and critics who refuse to hear. The press won't notice, but somehow the economy has. Guess which one you should care about? So Eric, this article in the Independent Journalism Review.
All those guys.
Yes, very good. Ben Johnson.
Alex and the crew.
He was at this dinner, and I think it offers a very rare, unique insight to the people that we are claiming to help. You know, the Afghans.
I love the fact that you point out the three questions that President Trump asked were all business related. And this is the thing that, through the whole primary, the whole election season, give the businessman a chance, because maybe doing things a little differently in D.C. might work. He asked about what do you need to win, number one. Number two, what do you need to be financially independent? And how can businesses invest in your country? Those are the three important questions that they, forget Obama, maybe they've never heard those questions before. It's doing foreign policy a little bit differently and could clearly resonate.
Yeah. Did you think the ambassador said those things because of the new guy, or did he really mean it? I think he meant it.
I don't think they'd have any, it seems to me they wouldn't have any
In
incentive
0.8 miles,
to say it if it
keep
wasn't
right on
true, and they didn't
25.
believe it. And I also think that, while the business aspect is interesting, I believe that President Trump is asking those questions because it's in America's national interest for Afghanistan to be successful. So for them to have a good and growing economy means that they are less likely to become a safe haven for terrorism again. And then the question becomes then, what does success look like to you? And you can't have success militarily if you don't also have the soft power that comes from diplomacy and a strong and growing economy. I do think it will be interesting to see if President Trump will accept a recommendation from the Pentagon for more troops, because I do think that that request is probably coming, and I think there's good reason for them to consider it and probably do it.
Kimberly, you look fantastic in white today.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yes. It's interesting.
What am I, chopped liver?
You look great.
Drive 2.1 miles, then keep right on 25 north.
I find it interesting that the most abrasive president is the one who relies on personal tact, which comes from, I guess, from real estate deals. He has to get in front of the person and then work it out, whereas Obama was like, I already know the answers, so I don't need to talk.
Well, it's really true, because he has sort of that professorial elitism that he does think that he knows better than everyone else, and that was one of the criticisms during his presidency, that he was lecturing to the American people, I know better, you do not, you're impulsive and petulant, and I'm going to show you the way. And part of this you saw was the way he handled Afghanistan and other areas, geopolitical areas that we get into conflict with. With Afghanistan, his plan was just to withdraw. When he saw that that was not going to be, a good idea, there was problems there that were ongoing, what did we see him do? He essentially punted to the next presidency and said, I'm going to let them handle this. He made the most restrictive rules of engagement that cost American lives. 3 out of 4 of the lives lost in Afghanistan were under Barack Obama's presidency. That is a fact. So when you think, it is, Bob, sorry.
That's the rule.
Okay, well, the point is now President Trump is going to have to go in there and fix this. And one of the first things he did was what he did was he turned the rules of engagement back to what they were before, which if you have anybody who's involved in the theater there, militarily, special ops forces, that was the thing that hurt them the most. Yes, not having the resources, but being so restrictive that they weren't able to take the fight to the Taliban to begin with, which now led to this abysmal failure that we're seeing in Afghanistan.
Here's an easy question. Has President Obama ever admitted once that he was wrong about anything? Trump seems to be more willing to change his mind. Obama, however...
That's for sure.
Yeah,
we agree on that.
I think we do.
Let me just I'm trying to do this in the nicest way possible, but usually when people don't know anything, they ask a lot of questions. Now, the
Oh my God.
Guys, don't have to say
Right there.
yes, you can put wow. You interrupt. I don't get the land where people are. What's your fault?
Don't know anything. They never ask the question, otherwise they would know.
3.5 miles, keep right on 25 north, then keep left.
But I think it's amazing
some diplomacy in his work. If you ask him about the health care bill when he stood up there, he knew nothing about it. Afghan has a very complicated history. It's driven out the biggest powers in the world.
Right onto I-5 North, then keep left.
And we're going to, like the British left the Khyber Pass, and the Soviets went back home. We're going to go home.
So he, David points out. I'm sorry.
No.
Let me know when you're done.
Go ahead.
Well, let me know when you're done. Are you done?
Of course.
Well, Bobby didn't answer my question.
What? When I say
has Obama ever admitted he was wrong about anything, including ISIS?
Yeah, I think it was pain in the side of his house in Chicago. No, he said most of the time he wasn't wrong.
Okay.
So can I guess what Dana had pointed out? That will President Trump listen to the generals and send ground troops to Afghanistan if needed?
I said more troops, it doesn't necessarily mean ground forces.
More troops, but we found out today that they did send, the generals did recommend sending troops to Syria. And he went with it. And this is something he said he wasn't in favor of, but he's listening to the generals. So, Bob, it is important to listen. If you don't exactly have a complete, fully understanding of what's going on the ground, in Syria, at every foreign theater, it's good to hear and listen to the generals.
I think we're saying the same thing. He doesn't know what he's doing.
No, we didn't say that. We didn't say that. The point is, Mark,
You think he knows something about Syria?
well, I'm telling you, if he wants to succeed, if you know anything about Donald Trump and you know him personally for many years, like I do and many people do that have had interactions with him in the business environment, he is going to equip himself with the facts to be able to succeed. He's not going to go into the presidency to then say, oh, sorry, I didn't do a very good job, and fire himself. He's going to try to get it right. And if you see, he's relying heavily on the advice of generals and people in his cabinet because he wants that type of strength and intelligence and previous success from people who actually know what they're doing so he can incorporate that into his foreign policy plan. And following up by asking questions so that he can learn, so that he can make good decisions. That's what a president should do.
Just out of curiosity, what do you think he was talking about how you do business in Afghanistan? I mean, if I was the president of Afghanistan, and he said that to me.
Please drive to highlighted route. Keep left onto I-5 North.
Foreign leader should be asking that question. How can we get business investment to come to our country? Because when you have that, you have growth. And when you have growth, you basically solve all your economic problems. And it also bails you out.
What are you going to do in Afghanistan?
Mining.
Mining, that's right.
Agriculture.
You want them to have a good economy to stabilize the region. That is a very important piece of the puzzle that a lot of times people don't think about. When you see the kind of strife that's happening with people like ISIS and the rest of them, it's because they go, oh, they don't have jobs. Remember that?
You liberals are the ones who said that after this is for terrorism and ISIS being the upstart is working.
ISIS stopped it.
Economic reasons. So here he is. He says what it's going to take to bring business investment to Afghanistan so these people have an option, an alternative to joining an ISIS. They can go start a business.
A Trump hotel.
Drive 2.1 miles, then keep left onto I-5 North.
You're assuming then that George Bush and Barack Obama didn't encourage businessmen to go to Afghanistan?
Did I say that? Did I once say that?
No, he said world leaders asked that
pointed out the guy from Afghanistan heard of it and said, no one ever asked me that question before.
The other thing he brought up,
How long has he been in office?
The other thing he brought up was that it was something we talked about, that President Obama would often say what he would do before he would do it, and that would drive Afghans crazy. Yeah,
he said that he said that we are leaving, and so that basically created this vacuum and it was a problem. But the other thing is President Trump has shown some willingness, and the media has picked up on it, to change his viewpoint based on interviews or meetings that he's had. So leading up to that joint session of Congress speech, he had 2 weeks worth of meetings with CEOs, and remember on that day of the joint session speech, he said, well, he actually was, they confirmed, floated the idea that maybe he was going to change his stand, or not his approach on the immigration bill, and that is true that he did do that. And presidents are allowed to change their mind. President Obama, remember after the pushback, he kept the Bush tax cuts. Because it goes to it. If I could just add one last thing about the ambassador. One of the ways that you develop good relationships is by showing an interest in somebody else, like maybe